A new investigation into Meta's business practices with its contracts has exposed another truly horrific reality of Facebook. An investigation by the Bureau of Investigative Journalism has uncovered the extreme repression of moderators of Facebook content they face in Africa. That's right. The moderation of Facebook's moderators that live in Africa are subject to some of the worst working oppression that the organization has ever seen. In order to skip out on paying a livable wage to content moderators on Meta, being Instagram, Messenger, and Facebook, the company has a secret office in the Ghanaian capital of Accra in West Africa. By secret, I mean secret. Not only is this meant to be hidden from the public, but employees are forbidden from telling anyone who they work for. This is the building in Ghana which holds the somewhat 150 employees which review Meta's user content. But let's back up a bit. It used to be contracted by a company in Kenya where it is facing multiple lawsuits over working conditions and human rights. Since then, they have moved to a new contractor called Teleperformance, a French multinational with a long history of devastating workers' rights. Foxglove Legal, a non-profit, is currently investigating Teleperformance in Accra and the company in Kenya. This is what they said. After the atrocious treatment of Facebook content moderators we exposed in Kenya, I thought it couldn't get any worse, said Martha Dark, Foxglove's co-executive director. I was wrong. These are the worst working conditions I have seen in 6 years of working with social media content moderators around the world. The workers there report mental illnesses from the content they've had to moderate. Some have fallen into self-harm. Stories include those who have attempted suicide because they've been unable to cope with the atrocities that they've been subjected to. After only about 3 months, Solomon attempted to take his own life. As a result, he was fired from his job and given a plane ticket back to his home in East Africa, which is in the middle of an insurgency. His attempted suicide was covered up at work because Teleperformance managers were worried that it would make the company look bad. No other support was given. During the stress he faced with the job, he learned of his best friend being killed back home. When it all piled up on him, he smashed a window in the dorm where he was staying. They threatened to fire him and placed him on mandatory leave with no support. There he stewed in pain from the loss of his friend and 2 particular videos he had to moderate. One of a man being skinned alive and the another of a screaming woman being beheaded. Unable to cope, Solomon started to self-harm. He stopped eating and began smoking and drinking compulsively. Rather than take responsibility, they offered him a plain home or a job with lower pay. He rejected them all. When questioned about Solomon's plight, Teleperformance said they had no record of him having had depression or psychological concerns before his attempted suicide. Their position was that he rejected psychological help after his employment. They said after they learned of his problems, they conducted a psychological assessment and determined that he was no longer fit to continue in his role in the company. Solomon describes being treated like a water bottle. Once drained of content, he's discarded. This happened because of the nature of the job, Solomon said, of his suicide attempt. But I am determined to fight for my rights. The workers in Kenya appear to have been hired to moderate content that is posted in languages from East Africa. The majority of them are not Ghanaian citizens. They are on temporary work permits. Their wages were described as uniquely cruel by Marcella Chen, a researcher and advocate with Foxglove. Contracts seen by TBIJ show that the base wage started at about 1,300 cedis per month, just over about $80, which is less than a fifth of the estimated average cost of living in Accra. Teleperformance told TBIJ that its moderators in Ghana receive a base pay that is more than double the country's minimum wage, which is about 20 cedis or $1.30 a day. Teleperformance disputed the figures, claiming that foreign content moderators earned roughly 16 times the national minimum wage, and local moderators about 10 times, once the range of additional payments were taken into account, and that these payments are automatically paid to the moderator and are not performance-based. It is also said that half of the workers achieved the targeted performance bonuses. The company did not provide evidence to support the claims, despite being asked to do so. To get these so-called performance bonuses, they have to hit targets. These targets are usually set automatically by a computer telling them how much time they have to review a single post to determine if it violates Facebook's terms of service. If a moderator misses these targets even by a small amount, they lose a significant amount of their performance bonus. In order to hit their targets, moderators sometimes have less than a minute or even of as little as 20 seconds to decide if a piece of content needs to be taken down, Jen explains. When dealing with distressing and complex content, that is an impossible task. To add insult on top of their poverty wages, overtime actually pays less than the regular hours, up to half of the regular wage. But the low regular wages are so poor that they force workers into working overtime in order to make the bare minimum in order to be able to eat. One of the workers described it as doing charity work for a tech billionaire company. Teleperformance has denied these claims. Workers are banned from telling people that they are essentially working for Meta, even though they are paid and organized by Teleperformance. Each day, workers are greeted by a sign that says, "Thank you for helping to protect Meta's platforms," but they're absolutely forbidden from telling anyone knowing that who they work for. One worker, Abdel, said that management told him that they try and forget what they see each day and go home at the end of each shift. He responded by saying, "We are not robots that you can just switch on and off." Abdel, too, now experiences mental health problems. He explains that the sight of blood used to make him feel spooked. Now he just feels numb when he sees it. Abdel now has nightmares and intrusive thoughts that bother him constantly. He says that he is not the only one, but many of the moderators on the floor are suffering from the same problem. The company is indifferent to their suffering. That's not all. The company is also engaged in union busting. Abdel was fired in late January for speaking up for employees who couldn't speak for themselves, including the previously mentioned Solomon. Employees in Ghana are also aware of what happened to those in Kenya who dared fight back against the bosses there. People they struggled with to get blacklisted by other digital outsourcing companies, making it almost impossible to find work. It's an advanced form of union busting, said Mercy Mutemi, a lawyer working with Foxglove on the Kenya cases. It's a way of rooting out dissenting voices and making sure you never yet even think about unionizing. Meta told TBIJ that it respects the right of outsourced employees to organize. Now, what was the reason for Abdel's termination? Abdel's termination letter reviewed by TBIJ cites unauthorized absences and the incorrect use of idle codes when he was away from his desk. Abdel said this was when he was taking care of Solomon, who was afraid to stay home alone after his suicide attempt. Meta's content moderation model made this tragedy not just possible, but inevitable, says Foxglove's Michaela Chen. Worst of all, Solomon is not alone, but no others have been able yet to speak publicly. Meta saw the game was up in Kenya, said Martha Dark. Now they're hoping to get away with causing harm to hundreds of other workers in Ghana. They're displaying a complete disregard for the humanity of its key safety workers, upon whom all of its profits rely, content moderators. One of the main problems here is that African countries compete for digital outsourcing companies, creating a race to the bottom when it comes to workers' rights and protection laws. It's clear that the industry is unwilling to regulate itself to show even the most basic level of humanity towards its workers. Many African governments see this kind of outsourcing as a way of achieving development and simply don't want to do anything that would incentivize a company to move elsewhere. Mutemi argues that African countries need to band together to set minimum labor standards. Efforts to fight this have to be at the continental level, she said, so you can't get away with it anywhere. Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.